Hey guys, welcome to Curious City, a space for seriously curious creatives to seek facts and perspectives on life, art, and design. Today we have with us Madhurima Sarkar, who is a CX designer at Atlas Copco. She is well known as one of the contributors to the new 20 rupees coin. She has vast experience in studying design in some of the most reputed colleges across the globe and has been working in the industry as a consumer experience designer. So, without wasting any time, welcome to the first episode of Curious City. Thank you, Madhu, for accepting the invite and coming to the podcast. And I want to just thank you for the last conversation, right? When we had 1 hour conversation where you talked about many things, opened up a lot of threads for me because I never thought about certain things ki wo trickling up kya hota hai, trickling down kya hota hai, hip hop, sari, how Mughals have influenced our design, and all of that was really fresh perspective for me. So thank you for bringing that to my knowledge. um, Today, let's see if we can touch those points, but we have a listed topics to discuss. I'm pretty sure the audience is going to love it. But before we get to that, I just wanted to ask you, how did you get into design? Because a lot of people don't usually just ऐसे ही get into design. So how did you get into design?
Okay, firstly, thank you very much, Bharat, for inviting me and having me here for this conversation. It's really interesting to speak to other designers and get to know everyone's perspective and open up our minds more the more we discuss. So, you asked me one question: how did I get into design? It's actually a very funny story. I was studying to be a doctor. I was a pre med and I was studying in Kolkata. I was a pretty goodish student, I would say, first bencher and all. So everyone in my family expected me to become a doctor. They were looking forward to that. However, I saw a tender on a newspaper one day for this college called National Institute of Fashion Technology. And at that time, I hardly had access to anything related to fashion. Like, it was not
Hmm.
allowed for us to look at fashion magazines or, even Stardust in our house. We were a very, a padhaku kind of a family.
Hmm.
So, I mean, it was difficult for my parents to even think that, fashion, what is fashion? So I saw that ad and I, just went to the tender, and, they were calling students to apply if they want to take up the bachelor's or master's course. So I just went out of my way. I was very interested in learning, what is fashion, what is design. So I just thought of applying and I did that. And I didn't tell anyone that I have applied. I lied at home. I told them I'm going for the AIMS exam when I went
Hmm.
for the IFT
Oh
exam.
man.
It was on the same day.
Okay.
So I just lied. I went there. And then later on, when the letter came to my house for acceptance, I got a very good rank. They sent out a letter that, you're called for a counseling in an NIFT Delhi. That is the first time my parents got to know that, I have applied for something somewhere outside of the medical field, and I even got accepted and they're calling me for counseling. And my father's first reaction, being a very Bengali father, he was like, tum doctor se darzi banne wale ho. So
Oh man.
most people still, in the eastern side of India, they look at, fashion design as, a modern darzi per se.
Ha.
So they were like, doctor se darzi, তুমি ডাক্তারের হতে চলেছিলে, লয়ার হয়ে যাও, দর্জি হতে কেন? So, it was like that. And I was like, okay, but I became stronger at that time. I was like, this is what I want to do. I have decided. And mostly children at that age, right outside of school, they don't get to decide their careers. But I still,
Yeah.
stood my ground. I'm generally very strong headed if something is needed to be done. So I was like, either
Mhm.
you, let me study what I want to study, or you get me married to a fuchkawala. That's also fine with me. But I am not
Oh
going to
man.
study something I don't want to study. So that's mostly how I got into, then they took me for counseling. Of course, they didn't let me take up a seat in NIF Delhi and Mumbai, saying that, you're studying fashion, you're going to say stay so far away, what if, you become a spoiled child and all. They were
Okay.
still very scared because no one in the family in our history, has ever studied anything near to design. Everyone is a
Hmm.
doctor, engineer, or a lawyer, so or a banker. So it was very different, and it was a completely new thing. Everyone in my family also was obsessed that, oh my god, you're studying fashion, can you make a blouse for me? So
Oh man.
but then again, that's how I got into design. And slowly, on my third year in NIFT, I went for an exchange program to Milan. I studied fashion forecasting in there. So most of the people in my family did not really understand what that is about. They're like, "Oh, you're just going to, like, put jargons in everyone's head." But when I came back, something somehow somewhere changed in me and in them also. They realized that fashion is a big field. There is a demand, and people are looking forward to having more designers around, be it fashion or be it non-fashion.
Hmm.
So slowly things changed, and I got a job in Flipkart. I was a senior stylist when they started the, menswear clothing section in Flipkart. So I got a job in Flipkart. I worked in there as a senior stylist. Then I moved to Celio as a regional creative head, where I was taking care of the visual merchandising for whole of East India. And then later on, I wanted to get more into design theory, design psychology. So I went to study masters in NID Gandhinagar, which is again, a very coveted design college. You have also studied in NID, so you are already aware of what it is. And that was an eye opener for me, because studying in NID, it changes you. I mean, we have that T-shirt, right? It's easy to
Yeah.
get into NID. Try getting out. If you thought it's difficult to get into NID, try getting out.
Oh my,
So
true.
so it was like that for me. I studied apparel design in NID
Hmm.
for 3.5 years. It's a 2.5 years course, but yeah, I mean, everyone completed in 3.5 years thanks to our internships. And my graduation project, I work in Louis Philippe.
Okay.
So Louis Philippe, in there, actually, in NID, everyone got projects to do something around fashion. However,
Hmm.
I am more interested in forecasting, in future forecasting. So Louis Philippe gave me the opportunity to work on a future forecasting project, and along with that, I did a lot of other projects in Louis Philippe, which mostly apparel designers don't do. I did packaging design, I did smart clothing
Hmm.
design. So quite a lot of different projects I have done in there. Then after Louis Philippe, I thought that, I want to get more into the conceptual design part of it, because I'm an ideator. So I can come up with interesting ideas. I read a lot. I'm a design nerd. I mean, that's what I call myself mostly.
Nice. Yeah.
So being a designer, I read a lot. I try to talk to as many people around me possible, because we are designing for humans after all. So we need to understand human psyche and psychology more than anything else. And I wanted to get deeper into it. So I took up a job in Atlas Copco as a conceptual designer. As a conceptual designer, my job was thinking of out of the box, ideas and concepts. I know out of the box is a
Hmm.
very cliche word for
Yeah.
designers,
Yeah.
but then again, that's what my job was, to think of concepts that will, be transformed into either applications or marketing campaigns or internal campaigns or learning campaigns. So it was a mix of a lot of different things when I took up the job in Atlas Copco as a conceptual designer. And after joining Atlas Copco as a conceptual designer, I got to work with a team called Customer Experience Management Hub. So this is the global customer experience management hub, and they manage, they drive the customer experience for all of Atlas Copco. So Atlas Copco has over 40 brands, but right now for 38 brands, this global customer experience management hub is driving the whole of customer experience.
Hmm.
So I did an augmented reality project with them,
Oh,
and that
nice.
was really interesting, and they also liked working with me. So after a point of time when there was an opening in the customer experience management hub, I
Hmm.
thought, okay, why not just apply for it? And I got through, and I'm the only designer in the team, designer.
Oh. Oh man. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. And definitely you are a designer from the last conversation, from where we went from Mughal to British to whatnot, like AR, VR in future as well. So we went from past to future talking about design. So definitely I can definitely vouch that you are a well-read designer. So that's there. Uh, I'm pretty sure now they can't call you Darji because you are now doing so many different things at such different scale, right? So That's pretty interesting. But a lot of the themes that you have been talking about has been around fashion. So I
Yes,
have a few questions around fashion. Again, for
of
the
course.
audience, I'm not an expert to even have follow up questions for her as well. I'm just ignorant enough to ask questions, maybe like dumb questions that maybe some people might relate to. Just wanted to know, right? What is fashion, and is fashion, like usually when we talk about design, right, in my community, or at least the 2 3 people who will watch this video, they are ux, they would be ux designers, and mostly when we say ux, we primarily focus on utility. There is a part of art to it, but mostly if it is not utilitarian, we don't call it design, right? So I just wanted to understand, because I feel I don't understand the utility of some of the things that I see in fashion, or what I perceive to be as fashion, right? So I wanted to understand what is fashion and how is design, fashion design related.
Of course. So, like you said, UX is all about utility. So, that means that UX is all about a function,
Yep.
right? But then again, fashion is basically a form of self expression. So, self
Mm.
expression can vary from, like, people to people. It depends on where a person is situated at, as in their culture, their, regional preferences, and of course, their own autonomy also at a particular place and period in a specific context. So fashion changes with context. If you look at it, we
Mm.
have something called haute couture. So haute couture is basically, all those Paris fashion shows that you look at, where you see people wearing clothes which are completely unwearable on the road. So
Mm.
those are like high end fashion. You won't imagine, someone wearing something like that on a daily, commuting in a bus. But then again, maybe in Met Gala you'll see people wearing the same thing. So
Yeah.
those kind of fashion is basically inspirational fashion. In
Mm.
India mostly we see certain people, people look at Ranveer Singh, for example, and they're like,
Mm.
okay, this guy wears anything. But then again, what is he trying to do? He's trying to show his self expression, and he's trying to become an inspiration, a role model for people. Because who
Mm.
doesn't want to be a role model? So,
Absolutely, yeah.
fashion is, of course, inspirational. And in another way, there is something else in fashion. It's called pret a porter. So, pret a
Okay.
porter means that ready to wear. So, the ready to
Mm.
wear clothing that is mass manufactured, that you see, that we are wearing every day, that is basically pret a porter. So there are fashion shows for pret-a-porter also, where you'll see, different brands like Burberry. So Burberry jackets you can definitely wear on a, rainy day in London, right? People do that. So that is pret. Even though that is fashion, that is pret. And you'll see, Zara copying the same Burberry jacket and selling
Mm.
it. So fashion definitely, is there. Everyone tries to express themselves in their own way. And now with, metaverse and everything coming in, the whole theory of self expression is changing. So fashion is not just limited to clothing right now. Fashion is everywhere. Even if you look at our phones, I mean iPhone, every day they are, launching a new camera, they're adding on a
Yeah.
new camera, right? So 39 kar diya, 30 iPhone 13 ko.
Yeah, yeah.
There were so many memes about it. But that became a fashion because the moment iPhone launched a phone with three cameras, you saw all other brands taking heed, and they are also launching camera phones with three cameras. Why
Yep.
are they doing that? Because people are aspiring for a phone with three cameras. Are they using
Understood.
it? No, they're not. I hardly know,
Mm.
out of 10 people who are using an iPhone, I don't know how many people are going to use the macro lens and how many people are using the telephoto lens.
Yeah.
But it's an aspiration. They have it in their hand. Someone else sees it. Oh, is that an iPhone 13? Oh, yes. Now we have
Mm.
iPhone 14, of course. And even in 14 they had the dynamic island, which was so much, talked about, that,
Yes.
dynamic island, okay, is this good for UX? It is not coming in a region which is easily accessible. The red region, we have those UX affinity maps
Yeah.
where, the red region is where you should place most of your icons and all. So this is coming nowhere in the red region, and some people were also, thinking that, every time we touch that dynamic island, we are going to touch the camera in there, they're going to be fingerprints and so many things. But then again, that is a new fashion that they got in, and people are now aspiring it. You see, so many people are excited to pick up their iPhone 14. I'm seeing statuses on Instagram that, I'm going to pick up an iPhone 14 tomorrow. And that's great, of course, because people are aspiring something. So even
Yeah,
that is fashion. Fashion is not just limited to clothing right now, it's everywhere. Anything that will help someone express themselves and become aspirational to someone else is just fashion.
understood. Okay, that's pretty interesting. So basically, there is a class that wants utilitarian clothes. That's one sect, but then there is aspiration. That is something that fashion design solves for as well. That's
Yes, because
interesting.
this aspiration, all these haute couture looks that you see, like, for example, Alexander McQueen, there
Hmm.
was this one show where he made a model wear a white dress and stand on a podium. Okay, and the
Okay.
podium was revolving, and there were paints being squatted from each side of that revolving
Oh
circle
yeah, yeah.
on that model. Okay,
I just saw
and
it
that
in somebody's story just 2 minutes back.
no, that is a different one. That is something new
Okay.
that has copied the Alexander McQueen. That is
Oh, I
Bella
see.
Hadid who is wearing that spray paint dress,
I
white
see.
dress
Okay.
Bella Hadid is wearing. So,
Okay.
I
Okay.
mean, that
Sorry.
is
Huh.
something that fashion, of course, it goes in cycles. So, whatever was done and dusted will again come back some years later in a new form, different,
Hmm.
like, in a different avatar per se, as per the context at that time, but it will come back. Fashion just keeps going in cycle. So, Alexander McQueen, he made that dress on stage, like, it just squatted paint all over the model, and the model was drenched with paint, and at the end the effect was beautiful and everyone loved it. But who is going to wear that on the road? No one, right? I don't see people, like, carrying squatting guns and, like, squatting paint on each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that is not going to happen. But then again, from that dress, the whole tie and dye trend came back once more. So
Hmm.
those kind of fashion haute couture is for inspiring people to take ideas from it. So people are taking ideas from there, they're taking micro ideas from there. Of course, they
Hmm.
cannot create the whole look and make everyone wear the same look everywhere. It's not possible. And no one is going to wear so many accessories. Like, I recently saw another one where, like, recently I think it was a Ralph Lauren show. So the models were made to wear condoms in their hand. And the
Okay.
condoms were filled with blue water
Okay.
on the runway. It was looking so beautiful. It was looking like, an alien kind of a thing, as if they had like these alien
Huh.
arms, like, which are like, it was looking beautiful. But who is going to wear a condom on their hand on a regular day?
Yeah.
I don't think anyone is going to. But then again, what I realized is that tomorrow we are going to see that a lot of people are going to, like, buy all these transparent gloves.
Hmm.
So that is something that will be derived from it. So all these haute couture clothing, they are basically made so that the Pret people can derive inspiration from that, and then they can take it forward and make it into a ready to wear version of it.
Got it. Got it.
So it's not
So.
like whatever you see on the runway, it's unwearable.
Hmm.
So why are they doing it? Are people supposed? What's there on the runway is basically an idea, a concept. Sometimes
Hmm.
designers think of, like, so many different concepts, as in fashion designers specifically, the haute couture ones. They think of future. So they only think of an idea, a vision they have in their head that, tomorrow we are going to become like this. There is so much of climate change happening. The icebergs are going to melt. So I'm going to show people that, they can't do anything about it. So this is
Okay.
how I'm going to put that condom thing on their hand with the blue water, because their hands, they can't do anything, they can't move. That
Hmm.
is their concept. And people who are just there in the show, they are immediately not going to grasp it. When they read a little bit about it, when they hear the designer talk about it, they will understand what went in their head to bring that concept out.
Got it. Got it. It's like a stage performance in a way wherein you have a concept, you present it in a certain way. It could be through
Correct,
painting, could be through song, could be through dance, and for
correct,
these
correct.
people, it's through fashion. That's pretty interesting. But I wanted to double down on this part wherein you said designing for aspiration, right? So everybody now in the UX field knows how to design for utility, because you ask people, you try to understand their what is their problem, and you try to problem solve basically, right? So how do you design for aspiration of people? What do you study? How do you take decisions?
You just study human beings. I think Apple is one brand that designs for aspirations. I mean, I am not the biggest fan of Apple. I'm saying this on record right now. So, I am not the biggest fan because, see, I have two phones with me. One is an Apple iPhone and one is an Android, okay? So, this is
Huh.
a Motorola phone. So this Motorola phone, I have had it longer than my Apple phone, and I am so comfortable using it because of the haptics. Why haptics? Because if I double touch with my two fingers, something is going to happen. If I want to go back, I go back like this. I just swipe and I go back. If I want to go forward, I swipe like this. If I want to, like, see all the tabs, I swipe up like this. So there is so many haptics that is there in this phone. It's a gaming phone. So the haptics are great, okay? In my Apple phone, if I want to go back, I have to go to the top and click on that small arrow.
To go
Of course, there
back.
are some
Yeah.
applications where we can definitely swipe left and go back, but not all. So I
Hmm.
have to go to the top and I have to go back. So are they designing for utility? Because I don't think so. I had to put this ring on my phone because I have to hold the phone somewhere to go back, like, put my
Yeah, yeah,
thumb in
yeah,
there
yeah.
and go back. Otherwise, my phone falls out from my hand. It's a big
Hmm.
phone. So
Hmm.
why did they design it like this? Did they design it for utility? I don't think so, because if they wanted to design it for utility, the haptics would have been thought about.
Right.
But that is not
Got
the
it.
case. They're designing for aspiration. Still, people are buying this phone. You ask 10 people, are you going to buy an Apple or a Motorola? Everyone is
Hmm.
going to say Apple. I think 9 may say Apple. I might be the only one who's saying Motorola. So,
Understood. Yeah, yeah.
and now even actually Motorola is also designing for aspiration. If you look at the recent range of flip phones,
Hmm.
so flip phones, I mean, before there was, when we were young, we used to have the Moto Flip, Moto
Yeah, yeah,
Razor.
yeah.
It
Motor
was
racer.
like an aspirational phone. I remember, like,
Yes.
everyone was crazy about it. Oh my God, this person has a Moto Razor. This guy is so hot. He has a Moto Razor.
Yeah.
So,
And that
I mean,
gesture, right? You just open it and put it like this on your phone, and you're like
exactly.
on
Exactly.
it.
I mean, and
Yeah,
even the
yeah.
ads and all, it showed that, you flip it, open it, and you put it in your
Ha ha
ear, and
ha.
everyone is just, going around with style. So that
Yeah.
style is coming from that phone. That became an aspiration. But nowadays, with touchscreen and all, how viable is a foldable phone? Even Samsung has come out with it to make the screen bigger. I understand they have come out with it. Samsung, I understand it becomes like a tab. If you open it up, it becomes like a book. The screen gets bigger. But the Motorola, like, flip phone, how viable is it? It's just like, a small screen and you open it and it becomes bigger. So it doesn't make much sense, frankly, to me. But then again, people are still buying it. They're happy about it that, oh my God, a flip phone now I'm getting at this time. So that is aspirational design. So even, like, tech companies not only design for utility, that's what I
Hmm.
feel, my personal opinion. They do design for aspiration. Apple is one of the biggest examples, because the things that I see in Android, like, 1 year back, they will come in Apple maybe after another year.
Yes, that happens.
So
Yes.
and people are still buying Apple. You see Flipkart sales. I think they had the biggest sale for Apple phone on Flipkart sale, and now
Hmm.
everyone has Apple phones.
Got
People
it.
were going
Yeah.
crazy. Some people even put, like, their invoices on Twitter saying I did not get my phone, and Flipkart apologized saying that the sales were too much, and we mistook
Hmm.
orders and we didn't have the stock. So even that happened in a country like India, where, I mean, we have a huge population. We do have, like, people above poverty level, below poverty level. A percentage is paying taxes, and still we have so many people buying an iPhone just out of aspiration. They are not
Yeah.
going to use all the features in it.
Yeah.
100% sure about it. But they're
Hmm.
still buying it.
Yeah, I guess because they feel good by holding that phone in their hand, even if whatever
Exactly.
happens to that phone, right? I guess that's pretty interesting because for a very long time I used to think middle class is all about mileage kitna deti hai, right? And then suddenly we are seeing at least this change happening in the society where we are trying to buy aspirational products as well, which is pretty interesting. But there is also something to look for as designers as well, I feel, which is uh, one cannot design aspirational product by not being bold. I feel you got to be a little bit of rebel and got to be a little bit of a bold designer to be able to do something that is not the norm out there in the industry.
Definitely.
What do you think about that?
No, I agree with it. You need to be bold and you need to be on the face. I mean, like, for example, there was this beautiful car that came in like 10 years back called Tata Nano. It's
Hmm.
actually a very good car for Indian household. It seats four people, exactly, like, perfect for an Indian family. And it gives good mileage. It has an elevation of 45-degree, I think. And it's a good car overall. It has, like, a lot of features which are good for Indian households. But why didn't it sell? Why is it stopping now, even though the design is beautiful? Because
Hmm.
they told people that this is the affordable car. They marketed it
Yep.
as an affordable car. They didn't make it an aspirational car. And
Yeah.
this sold nano, like this is a nano car, it has nano tech, and you sit in it, you zoom out, something, you become a proton or something. Everyone would have bought it. But they made it
Yeah.
like, this is India's first affordable car. And no one wants
Hmm.
affordable now. Everyone wants
Yeah.
aspirational.
Yeah, the car in itself has become a aspirational thing. So you can't just say ki I have bought a cheap car. That doesn't sound good.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's pretty interesting. Again, since we touched about that thing about being bold, right? I just wanted to
Mhm.
understand, and we have talked about it in the last call as well, but wanted to probably repeat it for the audience, wherein I have noticed that a lot of designers in the UX community wearing solid t-shirts most of the time, right? Like a black t-shirt
Solid
and
as
all.
in black, right?
Yeah, most of the time black or something dark. Okay, like thoda blue, thoda red usme jayega, maybe that way. And I'm also wearing a black because I don't know what else I have in my cupboard. But I just wanted to know, have you seen a phenomena wherein designers are trying to be very moderate in how they
Mhm.
express through their clothes, like even though it's not moderate, but they're not being too expressive, let's say, in a way कि एकदम bright कुछ पहन लिया या फिर कुछ I don't know, something that is not norm. I see very less designer do that. Why do you think majority of people are preferring the minimal style? uh,
I don't think majority of people prefer the minimal style, because the same designers, if you look at their avatars in metaverse or any games, for example, if they're playing a game, you look at their avatar, you will look at how crazy they are. They're having like, a unicorn hair color. There'll be feathers here and there, a huge crown on the head, and whatnot. They're going crazy when it comes to a digital place, because they
hmm,
know that, very less people are looking at them at a digital place. Very less people are judging them at a digital place. But in the
hmm,
physical world, everyone knows that, everyone is judging each other, and these people also want to be aspirational. And who are they aspiring to be? It's none other than one of our biggest designers, Steve Jobs. So,
yes.
I mean, when Steve Jobs started wearing a black t shirt and blue jeans to his launches, it was a taboo at that time. Why? Because you will see every, like, tech person wearing suits and going to all these launches, wearing a suit and a nice shirt, a tie, and, being prim and proper and going. And he was like, to hell with it. I'm going to wear my black t shirt and blue jeans.
Hmm.
And I, like, read it somewhere in one of his interviews. The whole reason he had the black t-shirt and blue jeans is because when he started his company, he had very less money to buy stuff for himself. So he used to buy, like, t-shirts off the rack, which used to come in a set of three. So
Yeah.
if he has a set of three, like, three black t-shirts he's buying, and he's wearing the same thing every day, no one can, like, tell him, like, oh my God, you're wearing the same clothing twice. Have you washed it? Or, you don't have any money, you're wearing the same thing again and again. No one can say these kind of things. So he started wearing the same clothing only because he was, like, very crunched. He was, like, putting all his money into everything else. So he didn't have that amount of, like, luxury to buy different kinds of stylish clothing and wear it. And by the time he went to a phase where he could afford to buy all stylish clothing, suits and everything, he realized that he is okay to stand out. So that was
Hmm.
his form of self expression, that was his form of fashion. He wanted to stand out from all the other 10 boardroom guys who was wearing the black coat and, tie and everything. So he started wearing black t-shirt and blue jeans for all his launches, and it became the most talked about thing everywhere.
Yeah.
Everyone was like, oh my God, this guy, he has this company, Macintosh, and, he's wearing a black t-shirt and blue jeans and he's going everywhere. Look at him. So everyone, like, started giving him some publicity, even though it
Hmm.
was negative in the beginning, because the boardroom guys wouldn't like to accept him as one of their own. He has talked
Hmm.
about his struggles in the beginning, where, he couldn't sell his idea to the investors. But then again, he just, went forward with it. And after some time, people accepted it, and then it became an aspirational thing for people, especially designers. Everyone wants to be Steve Jobs. So you look at other people now, they don't understand the concept of why he started wearing only black
Hmm.
t-shirt and blue jeans. They have no idea about it. But they know, if I wear a black t-shirt and blue jeans, I might be like Steve Jobs. People
Yeah, might
might
be
perceive me as Steve
exactly.
Jobs.
Yeah, yeah, and correct.
So it's not
Yes.
like they don't want to wear colors. It's not like they don't want to wear different designs, because you look at their
Hmm.
virtual avatars and you'll see what they are actually. But
Yeah.
then again, for the physical world, they are okay to be someone like Steve Jobs. They want to be
Hmm.
judged as someone like Steve Jobs. So this is the reason you'll see them wearing black t-shirt and blue jeans everywhere. They're happy
Understood.
with it, even though they will have like 100 black t-shirts, not just one, two, or three like Steve Jobs. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty interesting. Since you talked about virtual avatar, right? Few things I have been noticing, not in the virtual world ka virtual characters. I think we are still little far away from that being a reality. However, we are seeing virtual world in a multiple different ways. Let's say even our Twitter avatar also, right? When NFT was a thing in 2021, everybody had very fancy NFTs. I mean, dinosaur head, or I don't know, cyberpunk, what
I think
not.
that monkey became very
Monkey
famous. I
as well.
forgot the name.
Yeah,
Yeah.
some ape. I forgot the
Mhm.
some ape it was, but it was so fancy, right? Like how did we change from just putting a boring black and white picture of ourselves uh, to now expressing through so many different things, because there are so many assets that one particular character wears, right? So many expression that one particular character can have. So that was pretty interesting for me when I looked at that as being a movement of expression, right? So that was pretty interesting. But wanted to understand, what have you observed in the virtual world when it comes to being expressive as a fashion?
In the virtual world, the ball game is slightly different. In the virtual world, you're not going to meet your taxi wala. In the virtual world, you're not going to meet your kirana wala. So it's slightly different. People know they are in a sphere of like-minded people.
Hmm.
They are going to be judged less for what they look like. They are going to be judged less for what they express. So I mean, of course, everyone is judging and trolling each other and canceling each other. That's a different scenario. But still, in a virtual world, you live in a bubble, which kind of disengages you from the normal humdrum of a regular life. So here in my house, if I'm in here, my water guy will come and give me water. I'll take a cab to the office. I'll come back in a cab. I'll go to the shop. I'll interact with 10 people. And those people are also judging me. And they know me. They know where I live. They know where I'm going. They know what I do. They know these kind of information about me. But in the virtual world, only thing they might get to know is your IP,
Hmm.
unless you're of course giving more information that this is my house and all. That's a different scenario. But most people in the virtual world, they express themselves, and it also keeps certain parts of their life anonymous to others.
Yeah.
So you will see even their name is different. So I mean, for me, I am M designer. So my real name is Madhurima in the real world, but in the virtual world, I'm M designer, and I actually relate to that. And other
Yeah.
people also know that M designer is Madhurima, and those are the people who are in the same bubble as I am. There might be
Hmm.
people, if someone's profile is open, of course other people will come and visit and all, and those people are anyway going to come and judge. But other, the ones who are expressing themselves, they're okay with that kind of judging, because they don't know them personally. They're not going to
Yeah.
interact with them. Interaction nahi hai, to it's okay. Now let them judge. Let them do whatever. In my own bubble, whoever I'm interacting with, they are now aware that this is my self-expression. And
Yeah.
since I can't express my real self in the physical world, I'm going to do the same in the virtual world and go as crazy as I want, be it with my name or my avatar. I'll change my avatar every day if required to look different and stand out. Because in the virtual world, in our millennial, centennials, everyone, you'll see all of our friends have different avatars, and sometimes even avatars start looking the same. So
Hmm.
people want to really stand out from others. That's why you will see them really going all out and going as crazy as possible, just to
Understood.
be a different person. What Steve
Hmm.
Jobs did in real life, they are now doing it in the virtual world.
Oh yeah, that's true. Standing out is definitely a thing. Again, one thing that we discussed earlier was this thing as well, wherein in real world there are still a few people who try to stand out all the time, right? Which is So in my friend circle, it is the hip hop community, wherein they don't care what you wear. This check shirt is just boring people, or if you're wearing a shirt and a tie, you are just a boring guy. You're not on stage. You're just doing some random boring job, right? So how they express is through wearing whatever they want to wear. Could be funky or baggy clothes or whatever. So they're very fearless about being judged. Maybe I don't know if it's even fearless. Maybe they want to be judged, I don't know. Right. So that was pretty interesting, as in there are also people in physical world who can afford to go bold as well, right? So but that's a very tiny number of people, right? These are the artists of the world. I feel that's where Steve Jobs was also an artist in a way, because he broke the norm, right, by
Correct.
wearing the black t-shirt. Now the norm is the black t-shirt. So to break it, we can go maybe funky or somewhere there. But something that has happened with me was, I used to think that I have split personality. Okay, so when I'm
Mm-hmm.
not on stage, I'm a different silent kind of a person.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm on stage, I'm a different kind of person. And similarly, I thought that is what is happening with virtual as well, which is, in physical world people are a certain human being, and in virtual world they're a completely different character with a, and some people even have a complete different voice altogether, like वो mic का
Yes.
voice change करके also they kind of talk. So
I think I do if I'm on stage.
so that's pretty interesting, that I used to think that maybe it's very rare to have two personalities, but like you were saying, I feel everybody has different personalities, just that they don't want to show the other side of them, right? So
We all do actually. We do have different personalities. See, we are using 4% of our brains. So some
mm,
people use 3.8, some use 3.9, some use 3.95, some use 4.1%, and we don't know what else is there in our brain. So human psyche is also very complex. We have our id, ego, and super ego. So
okay.
sometimes our id is what actually makes us do stuff.
Mm,
So sometimes our ego makes us do stuff, and sometimes it's
mm,
our super ego that makes us do stuff. Like you said in stage you're a different personality. You feel very free. Maybe that is your natural habitat. Maybe that is what you like doing. Your id is driving you on stage. But when you're in a normal environment, in a board meeting, your id is being repressed by your super ego. Your super ego
mm,
is saying that, Bharat, you cannot be that guy on the stage. You cannot
mm,
be that flashy guy who is having those cool moves in here. This is a boardroom meeting. Behave yourself and be like the others around you.
mm,
So it depends on who we are listening to, the inner voice. Which voice are we listening to at what time? So we do have numerous personalities. Every human being does. I don't think it's just limited to two. When we look at
got
our
it.
virtual avatars, you'll understand how people's avatars are changing. So one person, how can they have so many different avatars? Because hidden inside they do have these personalities somewhere which is repressed because of course,
Mm,
the society, the culture, the context, and then they are coming out virtually.
yeah, yeah,
And
that's
hip
true.
hop people, like you said, yes, they do. They are very daring. They generally wear the same clothing on the roads. Also, you'll see that, but that is because of ideology. So the hip
Mm,
hop movement came because of a reason. There was a long time where most of the black people were seen as slaves. There was this whole I wouldn't say classism that came in, and because of classism, I mean the rulers used to look at these people as slaves. They were not allowed to wear any kind of clothing which is flashy or which is different. They were given same similar kind of clothing. They used to wear the same white color clothing and all, and it was same for everyone. They didn't have any identity to express themselves. So how did they start expressing themselves? They started it with music. They started with rap. So they
mm,
started rapping about their problems to each other because they couldn't speak so much. They used to have their own small festival. They used to have rap festivals, and they used to tell about their problems to each other. And in this festival, they started experimenting. They started wearing flashy clothes, something that they were not allowed to do by the ruling class. They
mm,
started expressing themselves. So hip hop is nothing but it is a way of self expression in the movement itself. People want to wear a lot of flashy jewelry because they want to show someone else that I exist. This is my right to have this space for myself. And
got
that is
it.
why. hip hop people, even in real life, if like a rapper will still mostly wear what he does on stage.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty fascinating. Since you talked about rapper, we want to talk about a film Gully Boy and another
Yes.
film Ghazni. Okay, so in
Yes.
Ghazni, whatever happened on screen got translated to mass media, wherein people started having the same haircut as Ghazni, as Amir Khan, wherein
Yes.
the opposite happened in Gully Boy, wherein some people are wearing a had a certain sense of clothing. The aspirational society picked it up and said that okay, this is what we are going to wear, which is
Correct.
kurta ke upar jacket pen ke we will create that thing. So
Yes.
you want to talk about that, how this transfer of aspiration, or how do we get inspired by each other, the aspirational class and the mass class.
So, uh, there is nothing per se like an aspirational class. In fashion,
Okay.
there are two theories. One is trickle up and one is trickle down. So
Okay.
trickle down will be something like, for example, if the queen is dead now. So if the maybe Kate Middleton is wearing a long dress, okay, and it like with a blue jacket, and it's a full toe length jacket and all, and she looks beautiful, and everyone else wants to look like Kate Middleton because she's royalty. So other people in London, you'll see suddenly similar jackets popping up in all stores in London and people wearing similar jackets everywhere. So that is
Hmm.
called trickle down. When someone from a higher class or someone who is a role model to others is wearing something and people are following it. I would say the same about Narendra Modi also, our prime minister, because he has this style. He is sporting a lot of beard fashion, and you will see a lot of other politicians actually are growing their beard, which was never there before. I remember a decade back, politicians mostly used to be clean shaven, and they used to have that white kurta and that pajama look and nothing else. But now you'll see the same politicians also wearing other stuff. They're wearing a Nehru jacket because our prime minister does. They're sporting that beard because they're aspiring some to be someone like him. That is
Yep.
basically trickle down. But in certain cases, like for hip hop is a street movement. So it started on the streets. People started wearing that kind of clothing, who were into rap, who were doing hip hop music, dance, they started wearing these kind of things, and everyone else started noticing them because they look
Hmm.
so different than the others around, right? So the ones who started noticing them, they also felt that, oh my god, this guy is wearing cap on backwards, so maybe even I look cool because he's looking so cool. So they started copying something from the street. So after a point of time, even influencers, look at people big influencers, you'll see them wearing all these hip hop jewelry, hip hop cap,
Yeah,
even
yeah.
though they have nothing to do related to hip hop. They're
Yep.
not dancers, they're not rappers, and they're still wearing it as their airport look, as a look basically. So that is because they liked something and they felt that this is so different, this is making that person stand out, it will make me also stand out from the rest.
Hmm.
This is called trickle up, because it's trickling up from a more repressed place to a higher place. And this is
Got it.
happening everywhere. It's a big phenomenon now. We have so many rappers, for example 50 Cent, not really a great rapper, but then again he's gonna wear all the gold chains and everything, be really flashy, have 10 rings on 10 fingers, and he's gonna have all these songs about women and what. Hip hop was never songs about women, it was songs about classism, about repression. But now you'll see hip hop talking about cars and women and amplifiers and whatnot. Specifically Hindi hip hop. You'll
Yeah,
see
yeah,
they
yeah.
will have one amplifier somewhere in the song. They will have a kuri or ladki somewhere in the song. They will have some ladki bhagana, some car in the song. But
Yeah.
that was not at all what hip hop is about. These people, they picked up those elements and they are still doing what they want to do. But they
Hmm.
are just using those elements to look different than others.
Got it. Yeah. Since you talked about role models, I have always had this question around models. Why does anybody want to be a model? And the other thing is, why do every model look the same in a way? And when they are on the stage, usually we want to be, let's say, differentiated on stage. At least what I was doing when I get on stage. But I've seen that there is a certain body type that everyone aspires to be as a model, and then there is a certain expression which is like pure neutral, or maybe some people call it the resting bitch face. I don't know. But they have this one face that is not very expressive. Maybe they don't want to draw attention on them or whatever. But I sometimes don't understand why models want to be models. Like what is the psyche behind why they want to be models and still be neutral in their expression?
See, firstly, I will start a little bit from the history. So I
Okay.
know this will take a little bit of time, but bear with me because this is important. So,
Sure.
I mean, previously, we didn't have fashion shows, we didn't have models even 200 years back. But
Hmm.
then again, with industrial revolution, like, Chanel was one of the first people who had a fashion show. Coco Chanel, she's the designer. You see this brand CC, like, Chanel everywhere.
Okay.
So she was one of the first people who had a fashion show, and she launched, like, things like the LBD, little black dress. So what did she do? She was from a, like, she's a seamstress basically. She was not a designer. So what she did, she was into opera, she was into acting, she was, like, into a lot of things. So she launched a fashion show where she made women wear, like, a lot of different kind of clothing that she like, designed for women. And it became a rave with all the people, because that was the first time they were seeing something like that, people walking with clothing designed. So this didn't
Hmm.
happen before. We only used to have store mannequins wearing clothing, like, with hats and all, and they used to be, like, put on the store facade. But now we had, like, live people wearing the same clothing, so people could understand the look and feel of how the clothes will look on the model. And at that time also, like, Coco Chanel, she understood that, there is a certain body type on which most clothes look well. So what is that body type? But that body type is basically svelte, as in, not too thin, a normal, like, good figure, not like, not a normal figure, how would I say it, mostly a fashion figure, and with a good height. Because someone with like, who is very tall, anything you make them wear, it somehow, like, hangs very nicely, it falls very
Hmm.
nicely. So
Okay.
Coco Chanel also used, like, models. And see, any model who's walking on a runway, they are not walking on a runway to express themselves, to, like, sing a song or to dance or to do some music. What is their role? Their role is to showcase the clothing that the designers have put on them,
I see.
right?
Hmm.
So it is not their self expression that they are doing on stage. They are
I
just
see.
showcasing the clothes that the designers have put on them. So with time, when, like, fashion shows became like a norm and people started having fashion shows, the Paris Fashion Week, the London Fashion Week, a lot of designers came in to showcase their collections. We had, like, Christian Dior, Issey Miyake, everyone came in to showcase their collections. We had so many designers who want to showcase their collections. But are we going to, like, create clothing for normal people and show it on the runway? If yes, where are we going to find the people who are going to wear those clothing? Are we just going to
Hmm.
select people who are going to, like, from the road and ask them that, can you just come and walk for me? No. Why not? Because when there are so many people showcasing something, there has to be some similarity between the people, like, who are wearing those clothes, so that
Yeah.
the same batch of
Hmm.
people can wear clothing for different designers.
Makes sense.
So
Yeah.
if we have, like, 10 fashion designers who are showcasing, we'll have two batches of models. One batch gets over, the next batch comes in, and the first batch, it goes and changes for the third designer's show. So because of this changing, so they started having one fixed body type. Because when they're designing also, they cannot just design in any, like, form and make someone wear it. They have to make it for
Hmm.
some body measurements. And what is that measurements? They started referring to the mannequin size. So yeah, when
Hmm.
designers do any kind of draping, pattern making, we follow some sizing, right? We have all these black mannequins. So I'm sure you might have seen it in your DRE lab or somewhere.
Yeah.
Design for retail, yeah. I mean, they do have mannequins and all in the lab. So these mannequins are basically used to drape clothing, to create clothing for these sizes. And the same sizes are used as reference to get people who meet those requirements. So what do
Hmm.
they want? They want someone who fits that mannequin size and who is a tall person. So this body, like, like, type became a rage in fashion shows only because the same body type had to be, like, replicated for all designers.
Got it.
People cannot keep designing in different sizes. and
Yeah.
also it has to have good look on the fashion show. I'm not saying that other sizes don't look good, but these designers, they had this thing in their mind that if this is this body type, then my clothes will look nice, they will fall
Mm.
nice. So that is why this whole thing came in. But nowadays we see that designers have learned to understand that you're actually designing for real people, specifically for prep. For haute couture, it's different. They are still going to use those skinny models. But for prep, people know that, we are designing for normal people. So we need to have normal people. So Sabyasachi, started using plus size models, because
Mm.
a lot of people who are buying from him are Indians, mostly are plus size, right? So he has to show the how the clothes are looking on normal people,
Mm.
and this is becoming a norm now. Even in Lakme Fashion Week now, there is a whole a set of models who are plus size, lesser height and all. And designers, if they are making for their body type, all well and good, they are going to use those models. And if they're still sticking to the same body type, because I mean, they are more used to it gets difficult to change a behavior of a person, right? So if they're
Mm.
still sticking to the previous one, then they are, but they are being criticized, they are being cancelled for doing it, because
Yeah.
people are like, why are the models too thin? And that is
Yeah.
also another problem, because you see, the models generally, they are picked up at a very young age because of the
Mm.
body type that is required for modeling, right? You don't get that body type after 30 and all. People do gain weight in different areas of the body, that's natural. So most models are picked up at a very young age, sometimes even 14, 15 is when people start modeling. So at this young age, when people start modeling, there have been incidents in Paris and all. The Paris models, they starve themselves like anything. They are not
Mm.
going to eat or drink anything during the fashion show time except Diet Coke. That
I
is their
see.
staple. So these people, after a point of time, because of anorexia, bulimia, they fall ill. And because these models are there on the runway, they are showcasing designs which are aspirational. People, when they're looking at the runway, they are not just looking at the design, they're also looking at the model. Kate
Mm.
Moss is a huge hit. Naomi Campbell, everyone knows her. Why? Because these are people who have been wearing so many different clothing for so many big designers on the runway. Other people are like, wow, I have to be like her. And we see so many young girls in India, everywhere around the world, starving themselves to look like models, which is a very
Got it.
bad thing. So now
Yeah.
things are changing, and with 3D fashion week and all, things are changing like anything. Because on 3D, I mean, people can design for any body type and any body shape. So
Yeah.
the last Lakme Fashion Week was on Metaverse. So at
Oh.
that Lakme Fashion Week, what they did is that they designed clothing for all body types, because they
Oh.
didn't have to create physical clothing, they were doing it on 3 dimension, right? So they can create for any body type, and it was a huge hit, everyone was happy with it. So things are being more accessible now to people with metaverse coming in, everyone is logging in and seeing a fashion week. It, they can see the chaos of the, they don't have to see the chaos of the shows, but they can just see the whole fashion show from the comfort of their couch.
Mm.
And since it's becoming more mass, that's why now this whole body type has become a huge issue. People are now not monitoring people, people are actually monitoring models so that they eat properly, so that
Got it.
their body is a normal proper human shape, not a very
Yeah.
wife like thin structure and all. So those kind of
Got
things
it.
are happening, changes are coming now.
Interesting. Yeah, since you talked about, you have been talking about 3D, virtual 3D fashion shows and all. Wanted to understand, is this something you, I mean, study because you are into forecasting, or actually don't know what forecasting is? Could you tell me what forecasting is, and do you forecast 3D fashion to be one of the thing that is going to be a trend very soon?
Okay, so for getting into this question, I'll first answer your first question. What is forecasting? So, forecasting is basically, see, like I said, fashion comes in cycles. Okay, so it's not easy to understand when what will come in. I mean, in 70s we had those bell bottom jeans that Amitabh Bachchan used to wear,
Yeah.
and in 2000, 2003, the same jeans had come back
Yes.
after 40 years. And there were a lot of designers who had predicted that these jeans are going to come back at this time. And 2000 1999, 1998, those designers had done fashion shows with bell bottom jeans. When
I
they
see.
did the shows, everyone was like, "Oh my god! I mean, this is so passe." Amitabh Bachchan used to wear these in the 70s, Diwar movie mein, and all these things. But then again, in 2000s, the same jeans came back, and everyone started buying it. Same
Yeah.
goes for high waisted jeans. Like, we used to have high waisted jeans when we were young. Then the whole low waist trend came in, and everyone started wearing, like, low waisted jeans and all. And now again, the high waisted jeans have come back. So basically, fashion is moving in cycles. Fashion forecasters, what they have to do is that they have to understand a lot of different things, starting from human psychology, cultural, like, prediction, as in, where our culture is going, global predictions, technology predictions, science, what's happening, then agriculture wise, what's happening, war, what's happening. So all these things they have to take into consideration. Then they do a complete mapping of what is happening where, and what they predict might happen from that. So if,
Hmm.
like, for example, I had done my Louis Philippe, I had done a fashion forecasting complete, like, research book. So in that book, at first I looked into the global
Okay.
trends, as in not just fashion, as in
Hmm.
socially what's happening. So socially, at that time, we had a lot of conflicts happening. There were bombings happening in Afghanistan. There were all these issues happening. Borders were closing down. Basically, people were like, we are not going to give visa to these people, and this is not going to happen, that is not going to happen. So people started becoming hyper national also. Like, we are like, America has the flag everywhere, but then that started replicating in other countries also. They started becoming more local than global.
Hmm.
I mean, yeah, of course. I mean, every other country is beautiful, but my country is my country. So that phenomena started coming into people's head socially. Then culturally, what was happening? So, like, technologically, what was happening? In terms of entertainment, what's happening? What kind of movies are people watching right now? What kind of
Hmm.
content are people taking right now? Like, what kind of gadgets do we have right now? So the whole research I had done, okay, what kind of wars are people waging right now? So after doing the whole research, I started doing predictions for each of those fears. When I did predictions for each of those fears and then added everything up, I came up with a concept that, after 5 years, people are will be so, like, they will have so much of cognitive overload with everything around. We are looking at our phones, like, 10 hours a day now, basically
Yep.
laptops 15 hours a day. So not just that, and we are taking so much of content, there is information overload. So there is information overload, there is cognitive overload. So, and along with that, there is so much of wars happening, which is disturbing. So much of, all these crimes happening, murders, rapes, this, that. And we are getting news from around the world like anything. So today, like, there was a flood in Florida, and I'm sitting here in Kolkata, and I got to know that, okay, there was a flood in Florida, so many people are affected, and there are crocodiles on the road and everything. So all these news, this information, it's too much for us to process on a daily basis. And to do that, we need a breather. So people would want to focus on wellness. So wellness was
Hmm.
my solution that I had come up with 5 years back. That, 5 years, not 5 years, 2017, yeah. So
Five
wellness was a
years.
solution, yeah, 5 years. 5 years back, I said that wellness was a solution people are looking for, and I came up with three concepts which are related to wellness. Okay, first concept was something very, like, people are very, like, local. So, like, something which is related to their culture. So people want to feel, like, close to their home. They
Yeah.
want to feel loved. So that was a sense of belonging. So that was the first concept. I forgot the name of the concept, but the sense of belonging was very important factor in that. So that was the first concept.
Hmm.
Second concept is that people want to blend in, but they also want to stand out. I mean, wherever they are. Today, I'm a global citizen. Okay, so even if I go to
Yep.
US, or even if I'm going to Belgium, or even if I'm sitting in India, I would want to blend in with the people around me. So that was the
Yep.
second concept: blending in yet standing out. And then there was a third concept, which was, I think, related to spirituality. There were three concepts, and I selected, like, I created color palettes out of it. So, as in, like, for example, for the blending in yet standing out, I created a very luminescent color palette with all
Okay.
optical fibers, and all these luminescent colors which are very chrome, and you see different
Hmm.
colors from different sides and all. So all these things I predicted 5 years back. And if you look at trends now, you will see that you'll actually see these things in trend.
Hmm. Yeah. It's pretty interesting. So you have to study multiple variables, right? That means
Correct.
you can't just understand fashion design and just do it. You got to understand what is happening across the society, in the economy, in the technology world. So that's pretty interesting, I think. Yeah, I mean, that's a very interesting field, because you have to study too many things to get this thing right, because okay, that's pretty
I would
interesting.
really thank two of my teachers, because I had very fabulous teachers both in NID and NIFT and even actually in Milan. So in NID, I had this faculty called Krishna Amin Patel. She was the dean of NIT Gandhinagar, and she used to be my faculty in apparel design. And she was the one who actually opened up my mind about forecasting. Because before that, I used to think that forecasting is only related to fashion. But where is fashion coming from? It's coming from
Hmm.
people's mindset, it's coming from context. And what is the context? So as a forecaster, I need to understand what will be the context 5 years down the line, what will be the context 2 years down the line. And
Hmm.
this forecasting doesn't just apply to fashion, it applies to tech also. You'll see, like, all these forecasts coming up that, 2025, what will be the UI trends. So
Yeah,
where
yeah,
are these forecasts coming up? It's the same research, it's the same knowledge that people are putting, but in a different manner.
yeah. Yeah, agreed. Although I don't agree with the forecast that they do for UI trends. I mean, they randomly just look at graphic design में क्या हुआ था पहले, and then हाँ ये भी हो सकता है, minimal हो सकता है,
No,
big
I mean,
typography,
if
bold
you
type.
follow big companies, like for example in fashion, we have companies like WGSN, we have
Hmm.
Promo Steel. So these people, they give forecasts which actually come true.
Okay.
But then
Hmm.
again, if you look at, like, YouTube bloggers and all, not all their forecasts might come true. We can't really blame
Yeah,
them. One
yeah, yeah.
person cannot forecast everything. I
That's true.
mean, they're not astrologers. Even
That's
astrologers
true.
can't.
Yeah. It's pretty interesting. You talked about your teachers helping you. I just wanted to understand this tiny part wherein how was your experience at colleges? What were you taught, and how did it help you become a designer? Again, not at length. You can just tell it. It's in short key. Those were certain things that you picked up from the various colleges that you went to.
Okay. So, firstly, when I went to NIFT, I had this teacher, Anamika Devnath. So, she's one of the most amazing people, because she actually, like, drilled the design concepts in our head, not just fashion.
I
So,
see.
fashion is a small part of design. Design is everywhere, right? Even if I look at, like, a pin, a safety pin, even that has been designed. So,
Yes.
design is something that she really drilled in my head. And how did she do that? Somehow she used to make me question the design of everyday things. Okay, I didn't know about
Hmm.
the book at that time, but she used to make me question. She used to ask me that, do you know why this safety pin was designed like this? Can you tell me? Do you know why, like, this pencil was designed like this? Do you know why this lipstick was designed like this? So she actually, like, made me start questioning everything around me. And questioning everything is very important as a designer, because if we know what and how, then we can say when.
Okay.
So when, as in,
It's
as a
pretty
forecaster
interesting.
I'm talking.
Yes.
So
Yes.
if we
Yes.
know the what and how, we can say when. So, like, when we look at a wheel was designed, like, 5,000 years back. I don't exactly remember when, but a
Hmm.
wheel was designed at that time, and someone designed a wheel, and from there now we are flying aeroplanes. Aeroplanes are also running on the runway on a wheel and then flying off, right? So
Yeah.
because of that one wheel, we are flying aeroplanes. But if someone starts questioning, why did the wheel coming? Why is the wheel a circular thing? Why is not a square or a triangle? So these kind of questions, asking questions, is what is very important as a designer. And in NIFT, I learned that, because, like, I didn't have like, a lot of I would say, like, I didn't have people in my family who understood design at all. So my only exposure was in college. And in college, I used to just pour in the library, read as much as possible, because NIFT has huge libraries. NIFT Kolkata library is also very well equipped. So I used to read as much as possible, read about different designers. Why did they do what they do? And why did
Hmm.
they come up with a concept? Like, if Coco Chanel made a little black dress, or if Christian Dior, like, made a women's, like, coat, Why did they do it? What was the context? Understanding the context, I think, drives us as designers. And that's what I learned in NIFT. Then I went to study in ISD. In there, I understand that it's not just context, actually. It's the concept also that's what matters. I had a very good faculty in there called Alfredo Gurazzi. So he used to actually, only talk about concept. So he used to say, okay, you understand the context, very good. I became a very contextual person, questioning everything, and be like, okay, this is the context, this is what is going to come up. But he was like, what is the concept behind it? Can you tell me the concept behind it? So, and that is when I started thinking more that, I'm thinking of what and why, but that when is still not coming. And the when is the most important part in any, design. You have to be designing for the people at the right time, at the right place. If
Yes.
landline phones was designed now, it will not work because people are
Hmm.
already using something which is different, right? So the is as important as the concept. After the concept part of it, I went to NID, and in NID I learned that context and concept is important, but what's most important, what Krishna really taught me, is the eye to detail.
I
So
see.
you need to know everything through and through, dissect things thoroughly, become a Sherlock Holmes, take off all the layers, make it once more. But then again, you need to know through and through and know the details of every design. And eye to detail is what something for example, makes a company like Apple what it is.
Yes.
Apple has eye to detail for everything. You look,
Yes.
everything is designed so meticulously, right? So that is what actually sets you apart from the rest.
Yes. Oh, that's a that's a list of things that every designer should definitely go through. But yeah, I mean, pretty interesting talking to you. I don't have any other questions, but is there anything that you want to talk to about? I mean, talk about, because there is a small group of UX designers that might be still watching this video. Do you have any advice for them as to why they should know about certain things that you know about?
As a UX designer, we are designing for humans, right? As fashion designer, we are designing for people,
Hmm.
right? So both are very interrelated, I would say. The whole UX process, it somehow I feel is very similar to the fashion process also. In UX, we have the double helix structure, right? We have the discovery phase, then which is the research phase, of course. Then we have the define phase where we define what do we want to do. Then we have the complete development phase, and then we have the delivery phase. Fashion is exactly like that. Most UX designers think that, okay, runway pe I'm seeing something so different. This is, I don't know how they design it. But the
Yeah.
design process is exactly the same. We have a discovery phase in fashion where people do a complete, comprehensive research of what's going on in the world. Research will be secondary and primary. People are going to interview other people, know what's happening, know what are the tastes, culturally, locally, globally, and then they are going to define, which is synthesize what they want to do. Maybe they will come up with a concept, they will ideate and come up with an idea which they want to, percolate in the mass. And then comes the development phase. Development phase is again just like UX. In UX we have, the wireframes, lo-fi, hi-fi. Then we have the complete information architecture. We have to, decide so many things in the development phase. In fashion also, you design, you make the mood boards, you make the color boards, you understand what kind of fabrics you want to use, what kind of textures will be working. You do the complete development for your clothing. And then, as in the development, as in the back end part of it. And
Yeah.
then comes the delivery phase. In delivery, in UX we have prototyping, right? We create the build, and then we do the MVP and final delivery, right? In fashion also, we create prototypes. It's
Got it.
exactly the same. So for clothing, they will first make a muslin fit, which is a prototype in a white fabric.
I
Not a
see.
white, it's a coarse, non-bleached fabric. And
Mhm.
then they create the same prototype if the measurements and everything is right, if the fit is looking correct. Then they create the same thing in the final fabric. Then they do the build,
Hmm.
as in the craftsmanship around it. And then they deliver via fashion shows, via whatever. So it's very similar process. So fashion design and UX design are not really that different, I would say. They're very interrelated because they are finally, at the end of the day, part of a design field. UX designers can, read a little bit about fashion. They can read certain books of why, the history of fashion came in, how did people change their mentality, because change is something that is permanent. Fashion has
Hmm.
been there for 7,000 years now. and it will be
Yep.
there forever. So even astronauts are fashion. So even if we go to space, there will be some way to express ourselves,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So fashion has been existent since human beings have been existent. Even if they didn't wear clothing, they were wearing some bangle or some kind of body paint, like which set them apart from others. So if we
Yes.
study fashion, we will understand humans better. We will understand why changes came in at certain point of time.
Hmm.
Why were human beings looking for change, and what made them change, what triggered that change. And once we understand those triggers, it will make us better designers to bring change to other people.
Understood. Oh, that's beautifully put. Uh, Thank you so much for your time. I won't ask further questions. It's a festive season. I don't want to bother you more. But thank you so much for the knowledge, man. I think you're a super well-read person, and I loved having this conversation, learning so much from you. And sorry if I've asked a lot of dumb questions because I have no idea. And I wanted to remain dumb till this interview as well, because I thought if I read, then I might just get some opinion and may not ask some of these dumber questions that I just asked. So, but thank you for being patient and thank you for answering all these questions. Thank you for your time. Uh, that's all. That's all for the episode.